Hi, everyone. Welcome back to WorkTech. I'm George LaRocque, and I'm thrilled to have a conversation with another member of the Impact WorkTech cohort. I'm really happy to introduce the community to POCMI, which connects migrating people and in-demand skills globally through technology. And I'm joined by founder and CEO Melissa Powell to learn more about POCMI. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here, George. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, I've been looking forward to this, and I get to, work with you, and I've gotten to know POCMI through the Accelerator, but can you give everyone a quick introduction, of yourself and POCMI?
Absolutely. So myself, I will just tell you that I'm absolutely obsessed with high skills migration. And I have other accolades, but I think that's the least important thing right now. So I am also Jamaican, which you'll probably hear later on in the story. It always comes out. And I've been through the migration process myself. And POCMI, as you know, stands for Piece of Cake Migration. And we are an HR tech marketplace and software ecosystem. And as you mentioned, that connects in-demand skills to migrating talent globally. And then we help them to more efficiently maneuver the hiring to migration compliantly and autonomously.
Wow.
So in other words, because that might have been a lot. If you're a hiring manager or recruiter that can't find talent locally, on our platform, you'll be connected to professionals who either want to move to another country, expats who want to move back home, or in some cases, displaced citizens who are professionals that need a new country to call home.
Oh, okay. And how did this get started? What's the why behind POCMI, and what's the origin story, I guess?
So POCMI's why is started with me. As a natural problem solver and caretaker of others, I always feel like I need to solve the injustices of the world. And me going through the migration and repatriation process myself, then helping others to do the same, I started to look into it when people were still complaining, because when I started to do it, I used yahoo.com to find a job. I'm kind of aging myself, but that was what was available.
Sure.
And up to the point where people kept asking me how to move to another country, we then had LinkedIn and Monster and all of these wonderful job platforms, but they just were not helping the migration process. So I looked into it some more, and I realized that humankind at the time, we were about to face the biggest aging population in our history, and that migration has always been the best solution for that. So skilled migration, of course, it's one of the biggest contributions to economic growth in almost every country on this planet. It's a thing that facilitates innovation, but the process to do so, as I mentioned before, has been one of the most inefficient processes out there, regardless of the level of skill. So you can be even at the C-suite level in a Fortune 50 company. High skill immigration is unnecessarily complicated and fragmented. So after realizing the tools were inefficient and they just were not for this particular purpose, I decided that it was time to create something that had this holistic approach to the process. And here we are now. I managed to convince my co-founders and our now team to come along for the ride.
Good for you.
And the rest is history. I like to tell this story because I think, like with my own family's history in migration, having great-grandparents who are skilled immigrants from 8 different countries, I think I was put on this earth to be a part of the change in how we address the global workforce. So there's also that in me that is a part of POCMI's why.
Yeah, well, that's a very personal why. That's very motivating, and so I know that it's complex, but like most people, I've I don't really know anything about it. So how does it work? Where and how do you help?
We help people who want to move to other countries or need to. We help them to connect with companies that are willing to hire someone of another nationality or move, because sometimes if it's an expat moving home, they don't necessarily need the work permit process, but they will need help to move back. And as I have learned, and others who have done both the migration and the repatriation, none of them are any better than the other. So you think because you lived in a country before, going back there will be easier. It is not. So that's why, we made sure to include it as a separate entity so that, you could go through the process the way that you need to go through it. So whether that's expatriation, repatriation, or the refugee situation. It's an ecosystem, which means that there are a lot of moving parts. But of course, we don't show you the moving parts. We've made all the pieces super simple to use and for our customers to navigate. And the current version, which just came out of beta, it allows the recruiters and hiring managers to manage the hiring process on our applicant tracking system. They can post their profile of the company. And of course, if it's a recruitment firm, we have an option for them to add an additional profile for the company that they're working for. They can use or uniquely developed NLP search system to search for the talent. They can communicate with the candidates via our messenger, invite them to apply, share files, set to-dos for their internal staff as well as the candidates. And they also have access to a special tool that we developed where they can compare 3 candidates from 3 different countries. So within that, the comparison includes hard and soft skills, as well as our proprietary salary adjustment calculator, which is super, I've been told is super helpful.
Yeah.
What else? Oh, so for on the candidate side, of course, their setup is pretty much similar. So they can create their profiles, but we don't have their search feature turned on currently, but they can correspond with the companies, the hiring managers. They can see exactly where they are in the hiring manager's process. And they also have a special tool that was created for them to compare 2 different countries. Now, the comparison is not just about what you see generally, cost of living and all of that stuff. We've made it very specific. You can compare hard facts as well as your own, feelings, how you feel about this. And you can also use our specially adjusted salary calculator. So these specially adjusted calculators take into consideration the type of lifestyle that the candidate would have been living where they are now, and what would get them to that kind of lifestyle or close to that kind of lifestyle where they're going. Yeah. So those are the main things, but there's a lot more to come, but right now we just want them to connect and be able to move through the hiring process seamlessly.
Yeah. And so you're also connecting to content around the process itself, right?
Correct.
Based on where the job is or the country that you're moving to or returning to. Yeah.
Correct. We do have country pages and a content section that has all things related in terms, even or partners who are in the immigration ecosystem or the moving ecosystem. Yeah, they can connect to that.
It's such a timely solution with everything happening in the world. I mean, there's the distributed workforce and there's the need to look abroad, no matter where you are for talent. And then, there are a lot of displaced people in the world that, whether it's because of wars and violence or people generally aren't displaced for good reasons. And this is something that really, it checks so many really good boxes about from the business side, but also, as a business, being able to do something good for people who really need it, and
Exactly.
and are
Exactly.
motivated. I think it's great. And
As you say that, we do fit into 6 of the 17 SDGs because of what we're doing. So we're really excited about that. And, we do also look forward to partnering with companies that are excited about that particular factor, because as I mentioned before, I'm about the injustices and making it better.
Yeah. Well, that's good. We need more people like you, and innovating solutions, for sure. So tell me about those customers. What does an ideal customer for POCMI look like? And I'm thinking of the employer side. But have you seen any similarities between the companies that work well for POCMI?
So far, we have a variety, even though we kind of targeted one subset.
Okay.
We've had large-scale international recruiters come on board, which was insane validation for us, because these firms, to me, would have already have access to candidates who want to move because they've been doing this for so long, but they're saying that the tools out there that they normally use just are not efficient. And then we've had smaller companies like startups come on, and then we've also had large companies. So I think the key thing is that it's a company that realizes that the best talent has no borders, and the investment is worth it to go through the process of whatever it takes to get that candidate to work for you. So whether it's going through an immigration process or just a relocation process, and willing to be very helpful and patient with that process, then that is, that has been the key thing that is similar with everybody.
Yeah. Well, anybody who's done any sort of cross-border move, it has lots of stories to tell about how frustrating the process can be.
I mean, when I had been talking about this for a long time, and the feedback or pushback I would normally get all the time was, okay, you're doing this immigration piece, but how are you gonna change that? Because as you even mentioned, that it was timely, right? Because of all that's going on, they would say, but how are you going to maneuver the immigration process? You can't change it. And I was like, don't worry about it. It's going to come. They're going to change on their own. And right now we have like tons of countries changing their process for the high-skilled migrants, encouraging the companies to bring in foreign talent. And so that has been helpful, not just to me, but to the companies. So, it's taking less time for them sometimes. It will take less time just off the bat using our platform, but now even more less time because of these changes.
Yeah. And so what are you hearing from those customers? What does success look like for them, or how do they articulate it?
So the main thing that they've articulated, 2 things. One is how clean and simple the platform is to use. And then 2 is just easily connecting with an individual who they know is already open to moving to them. Because right now, as it stands, they go on all these other big global job platforms, but those platforms are local centric. And what that means is that they'll search for a type of candidate, and they go through thousands of them, and they find some that they love, and they go through all this time interviewing these people, only for the people to be like, we're not interested in moving.
Yeah.
So it wastes so much time. So they're very happy to save all that time. And of course, by way of having all these candidates on the platform, it also saves them investment in multiple job postings on multiple job boards. So.
Yeah. And so, that's a really good point. How do you connect with migrating talent? It's a subset of all talent. So how do you focus on that?
Well, I can't give out all my secrets.
Good. Okay. Good
But I
point.
will say, in this case, it really has been build it and they will come. It definitely applied here. So much so that we now have a cohort of candidates that represent over 40 countries.
Oh.
But I will give you one way that we're continuing to do. We tested it just recently. We had a global job fair week in October, and it was just supposed to be the week. And we ended up extending it for the month because it was so well received. So that was helpful to bring in more candidates and more companies. And now we're going to do it every quarter because it gets everybody engaged. It removes some of the passiveness of the job seeking and searching.
Yeah.
So that's one plan that we have. So
that's a great idea. What do you have the next one scheduled?
It's going to be in February. We don't have the exact date yet, but it will be closer to the end of February.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, everybody will have to, keep an eye out for that. And I'll give you a chance to tell everyone how to find that in a minute. But what I'm really curious, and this is a big question, like what's next for POCMI? What's, the business or the product?
So business-wise, we are hoping to have a lot more partnerships with, some of the government organizations that are aligned with migration and helping that process move forward. We're also hoping to have some more partnerships with others in the ecosystem. So the most important thing on our platform is that you have access to the pieces that you need to complete the entire process. So that's on the partnership side. And then on the product side, we are going to ramp up on integrating the blockchain technology to help with we're going to be creating some global identities for these professionals that are verified. And then it's a technology that's also going to help in terms of the processing and making sure that nobody misses anything or changes anything that they're not supposed to change and we don't know what was there before. And just keeping in the timelines, which is super important for this to be an effective system. So that's next. We already have implemented a serious machine learning and natural language processing system. So we're gonna just keep improving on that. And as I mentioned, the new integration.
Wow, that's great. Blockchain has been in a part of the conversation for a long time, but in our space, it's very selectively used so far, but it's perfect for the kind of thing. It's in those use cases that you're talking about, verification, locking down, personal information, and, creating not just a, transferable profile for the sake of a profile, but, in this case, it's very important, that it's consistent and available for this kind of migration process. So
exactly. And it allows the stakeholders to have access to what they need and not have to be bombarded by all the information, right?
Yeah.
We're very proud that we came second at the Government Blockchain Association's innovation setup in May. So we feel a little bit validated.
That's great. Yeah, that's fantastic. And so where can everyone go learn more? You've got a lot going on. Where can folks learn more about it and maybe get the info about the job fair as it's getting published?
So they can go to POCMI.com. That's POCMI.com. There they can access the page for the job fair as well. So they can sign up for it and we can reach out to them when it's actually, when we have all the details. They can sign up on the platform from there as well. If you wanted to learn more, you can also go to our LinkedIn and Instagram pages or Twitter for the company as well as mine, because there's a lot of information on both. And yeah, just if you do a quick search on POCMI, there's not much that's going to come up other than us. And if you put Melissa Powell and POCMI,
you're going to end up in the right place. Yeah. That's great. Well, I really enjoyed this, and thank you. I know you're busy. Thank you for sharing your time and your story with everyone.
Of course, no problem. Thank you so much for having me and for accepting me in the Accelerator.
Oh, of course.
It's been a lot helpful.
Oh, that's great to hear. Great to hear. All right. Thanks. And thanks, everyone.